Hey, this is Victor with SkyTech1. Hope you liked that video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. What you saw was known as the SNFL Library, part of the New York Public Library, and SNFL stands for the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library, and I hope I did not mispronounce that. But the library hired SkyTech1 to direct and produce the video. To accomplish a very technical shoot like this, we hired Miami's finest FPV drone pilot, Justin Namon. Spoke with him a couple weeks later to kind of figure out, what his experience was like that day, what kind of challenges he faced, a little bit about himself and his drones. And before that, I roll that tape, I want to thank all my subscribers. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and make sure you click that notification bell, because if you don't, you'll miss out most of my videos. So without further ado, here's the tape. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SkyTech1 show. I am your host, Victor Chu, and today we have a very special guest all the way from Miami, Florida, Justin Namon, also known as WhoFPV. So Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and who really is who?
Sure. Born and raised in Miami. I'm a photographer by trade. University of Miami. I got my bachelor in fine arts. I was going to be an artist, go out there, work. I had work in galleries. I was producing work. I was shooting. I was building little bodies of work to get going. But there was I had student debt. I had to pay back my loans. They were knocking on my door. So I had to go find work. And what I did find was freelance work, working for a local photographer who did what I would call borderline paparazzi photography. Mm-hmm. This was the deal. The difference is he had the permission of these celebrities to get their photos. The rules were we had to walk with a camera on our strap to us, behind our back, formally shake the hand of the celebrity, explain to them who we are working for, and if they would be okay with a photo. Yes, great. Let's take a photo, snap. No, thank you so much. Have a good evening. We'll talk later. Very simple setup. At the same time, we're working for nightlife, nightclubs. It was the perfect job for someone straight out of college. Catch up to me at 22, 23. I was there. Nightlife, me, no, it was over. There's just a certain amount you can take.
I did the same thing. I also my route was very similar to yours, photography, drone. And I also did nightlife, and just for me, it was just working until 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And then going to sleep,
wake up at 1,
and then, it's just people, dancing and smiling at the club. How did you feel about that? That kind of photography.
Let's break it down further. It was the best job in terms of where it took me, the environments it was putting me in, partying, having a good time, meeting great people. But every time I popped that flash, it killed me inside. I got into FPV sort of as a hobby, because photography at one point was my hobby, but as it became my profession, I found less and less, joy or escape in actually going and photographing. So, after photographing professionally for about 12 years, I decided to pick up a drone. The first one was a Phantom 2.
I've, seen some of your footage flying through museums, dinosaur skeletons and fossils and all that stuff. And how do you keep yourself safe, and how do you keep all this priceless artifacts safe?
By flying very, very carefully. Well, there's always the liability, which is helpful. It definitely, knocking on wood, I have not had to use one yet, but it always makes the client feel better that there is one. They're really affordable, especially if you're a Part 107, just to go to what do you use? I can't remember.
Verifly?
Verifly.
Yeah.
It's Air Maps. Verifly. It's affordable, it's cheap, quick, easy to get, right on the spot, and it keeps the clients happy. That's number one thing I always do is make sure there's liability. Second thing, the drones that I do build, I don't have one with me. I'm so sorry, but they do have propeller protectors, which is just like a second level of defense against any kind of bumps or crashes. I'd hate to say crash because I'm flying at a very controlled pace. I would say similar to DJI in terms of like just pacing myself. So the kind of movements I make aren't going to be going fast enough for injury to occur. Ideally, that's always the way I'm trying to make it happen. No.
How fast is that speed?
It's dependent on the camera angle. So I only have these two magnets here. I got my toys back here, but if you can imagine the quad being this and the camera angle being that, depending on which way, how high I go, that's how fast it will go. So I tend to put my camera angle pretty much flat, but if I'm flying outdoors, I'll pop it up to about 30 degrees. And if I'm flying racing, which is a whole other thing, I'll go about 45, 50. And we're basically getting almost a vertical flying quad.
Yeah.
Where there's no yaw involved. It's basically just roll and pitch.
Tell me about your WhoFPV call name.
So when I started flying FPV with my local group, my local chapter, it wasn't really racers. They were more like freestyle pilots, and they set up a few gates. But the way I was explained to it was I was given a name. You're going to be given a name as your pilot. You can't just, you know, it's like a blessing, so to say, you know. I showed up to the first meet, and they're like, oh, hey, meet Justin.
Yeah.
Who? That was it. And I was like, what? And they're like, oh, that's it. You got your name, buddy. And I was like, what do you mean? What's my name? You're who?
You said who?
We don't know who you are.
Now let's switch gears to your drone shoot with the NYPL. So NYPL, the New York Public Library in Midtown Manhattan, hired SkyTech One to direct and produce a video showcasing their new library, the SNFL library. And SkyTech One reached out to first, actually, this fella named Johnny, also known as Blaster, from Denver, Colorado. But he wasn't available at the time, and he vouched for you, WhoFPV. Justin, can you tell me a little bit about the drones and equipment you brought to New York for the New York Public Library shoot?
Sure. So I brought over my Shen drones, Squirt V1, trusted and true, always served me right. I brought over my Team Black Sheep Tango 2 remote, which gives me some great range. Although we did have issues on the rooftop, but that's another story. And I also brought my DJI goggles and camera setup so that I could get really phenomenal range in the library and make sure we didn't have too much signal breakup, which is custom and normal with analog video feed. Kind of limits our distance, especially indoors. So the DJI gave me that extra confidence boost so we can send it to little nooks and crannies up in there.
Great. Can you just describe your game plan? What was your kind of goal for the day?
Well, I mean, only having seen photos of the space and then getting there, it was a completely different experience. I think it gave me kind of like a square footage rundown. It was like, I forget, 100,000 square foot. I had to double check the numbers. I was like, whoa. I was like, are we going to get all this? And once I got to the space, I understood it a little bit better. In terms of a game plan, whenever I get to a space, I like to just kind of maybe sit, and you'll catch me just hand on my chin and just looking. And I'm visualizing lines, potential places drones can go, what looks well, what's catching my attention, what is the first things I see when I walk into space, because that's likely the first thing someone else would want to see, especially if they can't go to that space, be at that space. So I think there was like a digital mock-up on the wall. Yeah. I took a photo of it. I drew a couple lines, kind of giving myself a little bit of inspiration. I'm never quite married to those ideas, these little lines I draw on my phone, but it does give me a good starting point, a good place to, just get the ball rolling and tying it all together. Because at the end of the day, I do like to tie If I have to break up the flights, I'd like to tie them together at some point. Ideally, get it in one take, but that's not always the case, and you just have to be able to adapt, you know? So I knew we were going to do multiple takes for this one just because of the size.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah. And I, when I approach this project, during our scout the day before, I just took photos. For me, like my process was take photos of things that I find interesting that I want to capture in a certain way, or I definitely want to capture. And on the day of the shoot, I was like, all right, I kind of was more like, all right, I'm going to let Justin do his thing because he has experience, with this type of drone, with this type of drone technology, and he knows his limitations. So I was like, all right, let Justin do his thing. But, certain places I want the drone to fly in a certain way. So I was like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And for other directors who are hiring FPV pilots, is that the right way to direct, or is there another way that's even better?
Well, I guess it also depends on the pilot, right? But I see every project as a collaboration. It's always a collaborative effort. There isn't it. Even if I'm the only shooter on site, which was the case in this particular portion of it, it's not only about me, it's about client. It's about, if there is a director or producer like yourself, what are their ideas? If it's only limited to myself, it can be closed up. There are other potentials that aren't revisited. There are other eyes on site that can help me, maybe give me a little direction, which would open up a whole nother set of possibilities of things we can do, navigate through. So yes, that is the way to do it. With a director on site, if they have certain shots they want to get captured, it's important to talk about it then, because if there are limitations that the drone won't allow me to capture it that way that the director wants, I can talk about it then and there, address it, and maybe find an alternative solution if need be. So for sure, that is, I think that's just part of the creative process in general. You brought me on board to capture the space, and that's what I was going to do. What
was your favorite moment of the video, I guess you can say?
Well, all right. Favorite moment was when my quad wasn't sucked up off the roof and those little vortex winds that were happening up there. That was my favorite moment. I was like, cool. All right. That didn't happen. No, but in reality, the favorite one was that multi-level area. It's just so gorgeous in there. There was a few things I really, we could have had a lot of fun with, but the space was so big that those little details would only have been like this. It's such a grandiose space that it needed to be shown like that. Needed to see everything about it. I think tweaking the camera upwards was a happy place that we didn't quite.
Sure.
It was more like, we don't know what we're going to get, but let's just try it out. Let's see it. And the results were surprisingly great. So that kind of experimenting, a little bit of the free flight. When he told me I could dive, they're like, try to dive. And I was like, all right, let's do it. These were all good moments. I think I did feel so overwhelmed at one point with that 5-story space that I remember I had to just decouple myself from the line I had originally envisioned and see the space kind of new. I had to definitely just take the drone, and when I'm in the goggles, just go where my eye wanted to go. And I think that ended up being one of the final shot we used, where I do a lot of almost like a whirlwind flying through and just going to this level. So that ended up being the take that we used, which is just where my eye took me. Where my eye took the drone, because my line was getting I would call it too convoluted. There's too many things I wanted to address, whereas the space itself just needed to be addressed at that point. And that's what I think I feel I captured pretty effectively in that one take.
Yeah, definitely. That was also one of my favorite shots in the video. I do remember on the day of the shoot that I wanted to ask you if we can get the drone to just ramp up go 90 degrees upwards.
Yeah.
Make it turn like a roller coaster and then
Sure.
come down like this and then level out again. Do you mind telling us briefly like the physics of that?
Sure.
The mechanics of that?
We'll go in a number of steps. Number one, it was the wrong quad. This quad, the Shendrone Squirt is a ducted quad.
Mm-hmm.
So airflow is only up and down through the tube.
Right.
You can imagine like a tube on each propeller. If I were to do any of those kind of physics, like climb up, that's all fine and dandy. It's on the come down. Air starts to catch inside the ducts, the propeller ducts, and it starts to pull and yank at the quad, and it makes it a very, I would say, unsafe for indoors type of descent.
Right.
On top of that, potentially eating its own dirty air, the air that it's already pushed down. It's just not the quad for it. You would want an open prop quad for that. No propeller protectors. And even if I had a small one, like a 3-inch that could hold a GoPro and do it, I probably still wouldn't have done it with the insurance requirements they had for us. That really put the nail in the coffin for any of those kind of takes. And I mean, without the right drone, without the ability to do so safely, the shot had to be cut out. We had to find another alternative for it. And that's a good example about, collaborating, discussing ideas, talking about what can and can't be done on the day of the shoot, because you might go into the vision and have this whole vision that's going to happen. But if I physically can't do that, if I cannot do that, the drone cannot do that shot, I'm going to have to crush your dreams right now and let you know. And then we come up with an alternative. We make a plan then.
Now that the shoot is over, the video is out, you've gotten a lot of praise. The video is, very popular among, social media. What are your final thoughts? What are your, final comments?
Well, first off, it was my first travel gig post-COVID. So I will tell you that thank you for that opportunity to remember that the world is there,
you're welcome,
and ready to go. I can't wait for the next one is really probably the best thing to say, because since I've been back, I've done about 3 or 4 other flights, which have been great. They've been fun. But working, because I believe the creative director was with us, or the video, Tara was her name.
Yeah, video. She's like the head of video, I believe.
But even having her and the other contact who you had come in, it was such a good experience working for NYPL, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a nonprofit. Beautiful spaces. And as an interior photographer, like, it'd be great just to shoot the space. But as a drone pilot, if I could fly those spaces, all of them. I mean, like, I've seen so many interiors that are just gorgeous. It would be fun to do that again. So I'm looking forward to the next one is my biggest takeaway. That's just good.
Yeah, likewise. You're a very talented photographer, talented filmmaker, director, producer, drone pilot. How can people find you on social media? How can they find you?
Well, most of my tag is WhoFPV. So Instagram at WhoFPV, YouTube, WhoFPV, Air Views, which I'm kind of getting back into. I'm building up my relationship with them again, WhoFPV. So you just search that word. If you make it all one word, WHOFPV, you'll find me somewhere,
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the SkyTech One Show, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.
All right. Have a good one, Vic.
You too. Bye-bye.